Hello, Blues, and welcome to another Manchester is Blue, Once a Blue podcast, the third episode of the side series. And once again, we've got the main man, Mr. City Dave himself. How are you doing, Dave?
Hello. Yeah, doing well. Got a haircut today from the missus, so all good. Kids aren't making fun of me now for all the grey, so...
Are you sure you're not just going to do nice me?
I thought about it. And I've done that in the past, and I got in a lot of trouble for it. So I decided not to do it this time.
Well, you've got to keep on right tracks to the missus, haven't you?
Exactly. Yeah. While you're quarantined, the last thing you want to be doing is fighting with your missus.
Too right. You do very right. So yeah, Blues. Basically, for those who don't know, we talk about 2 to 3 former City players. About the time at the club, when they signed, what they did, what they achieved, and just basically we have a general chit chat about what we thought of them personally as City fans and what they meant to the club. This week we're only doing 2, so a nice, easy, quick one, but they are 2 names that could easily have their own single podcast. We start with the Welsh maestro in Craig Bellamy, which for a lot of City fans still to this day is probably one of their favourite players. He had a lot about him. And would I be right in saying the controversial fan favourite in Carlos Tevez? Is that the best way to describe him?
Yes, you've got a... I can't think of many City fans who don't like him, to be honest. But yeah, very controversial in his time there. Left us for several months. With that argument with Mancini but came back. But I mean, what he did for the club, and wonderful player. So yeah, a controversial fan favourite. That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, well, we'll leave him till last time because no doubt we'll have plenty to talk about him.
Yeah.
We'll start off with Craig Bellamy then. We signed him on the 19th of January, so it was a January signing in 2009. For 14 million thereabouts. There were discussions about add-ons from West Ham. He made a total of 51 appearances over the 2-year spell at City, scoring only 15 goals, which for 2 years, 51 appearances, 15 goals in all competitions, not too bad. Primarily winger. He definitely liked his chance of going up front every now and then. He knew how to find the back of the net without a doubt. And he marked his debut with a winner. Can you remember against who it was against? It was on the 28th of Jan. I brought this up a couple of weeks ago.
Without looking it on Wikipedia, I would not know that.
It was a 2-1 win against Newcastle, and he scored the winning goal on his debut. What a way to mark an appearance, especially against a 2.
And particularly if Shearer was playing in that game. I don't know if Shearer had retired by then, but if he was, then Bellamy would have loved that because they have a very, very big love-hate relationship, those two. So,
yeah, I completely agree. What are your favourite memories of Bellamy? And surely the goal against United has got to be number 1.
Probably, and I kind of mentioned this as well on our little group chat a couple of days ago that I've got to be honest, I was very, very surprised that derby game where we lost 4-3 and Bellamy was just world class that game, that made the top 10 Premier League matches of all time with match of the day, because I really felt, and this is not sour grapes, that I really do think that the 6-1 where we won at Old Trafford is a bigger game than more momentous occasion than the 4-3. But yeah, that's my probably abiding memory of Bellamy. I'd seen him play at Main Road when he was still at Norwich and at Coventry City as well. Reminded me a lot of Darren Huckabee. He was that kind of player of just a head down and a bit like in his earlier career anyway, but ran like a headless chicken, with the ball. There was not a lot of end product with it, but you could see with all of the clubs that he's been at that every manager, Bobby Robson, and whoever else, they all saw something in him that he's gonna do something, and he's a very, very good player, and he had the right mentality as well. And yeah, he fell out with a lot of managers, I get that, but he had that winning mentality, that winning streak that you need to play at that level. Yeah, I've got nothing but praise for Bellamy in his time at City. Obviously, he was only there two seasons. Probably very much down to Mark Hughes, fellow Welshman. It's no surprise to me that Mancini comes in and then he's, sent out on loan to Cardiff City, and then, we never see him in a City shirt again. And, I kind of laugh now. Can you imagine Mancini trying to manage Bellamy and Balotelli?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just no way. You can only handle
On
one
top of the Tevez saga as well, coming into play later on. He just never had the time to adapt a whole coast of players, didn't he? He always had a controversial figure at the club, and Bellamy was, start of that, really, wasn't he?
No, and you could tell that I think Bellamy didn't really play for the shirt, I didn't feel, but he played for his manager, and he always played well for City. And I think he was that controversial fan favourite, as you say, Dan, because you never knew what he was going to do. If you got him on the ball, he's the sort of player where a lot of fans were on the feet wondering what he was going to do. And
City, he only had one direction he was going to run, wasn't he? And he always did it.
Yeah, he wasn't a sideways player at all. He was head down and get there and can I score? And that goal he scored in that derby against United, I think, was that the equalising goal for 3-3? Possibly.
I believe it was, because it was the last goal City scored that game before obviously Rooney
that was an absolute worldie. I mean, if that had been Neymar or Messi or Ronaldo or whatever scoring that, that would be certainly on the highlight reel. But very good player for us. Probably left at the right time because he was never going to get along with Mancini, was he? I guess my story with Bellamy is he was yet another one who was out here for pre-season training in Portland 10 years ago. Couldn't have been nicer. And what I found out from speaking to some of the City staff at the time was that Craig Bellamy was really good with fans, and he was really behind closed doors where he was niggly. He was never and I kind of appreciate that about Bellamy, that really good with fans, really understood why, everyone wanted autographs and whatever, and he'd do that, and he'd stand there and do that. His complaints and his arguments with managers and whatever that was just totally different. But yeah, they did a little signing session one of the days, and it was Bellamy and Adam Johnson, who we won't talk about. It was Adam Johnson who were the two players who kind of went, yeah, we'll do it. Adam Johnson had not long been at the club, and he was really, really a little bit shy and reticent. And Craig Bellamy was just out there talking to everyone. Hey, who wants pictures? Who was an autograph? Couldn't have been a nicer guy. Had a good chat with him. So his time at City and just his personality with us while he was there, can't complain. Can't complain at all.
He always came across to me. I mean, we read the stories. Back in 2010. And obviously we had the foreign lads starting to come through, especially the midfielders. And he did argue the toss that they were pulling their weight in training and in the matches. He was always, to me, he was a hard case, but he was a professional hard case. He always, it's like today's stories. You hear the stories about him bullying young lads, and he's just his persona and stuff like that. And go back to what you said, you couldn't have met a nicer guy. I think that just shows how professional he is. I don't think people in today's football, I'd like to say they're a bit wimpish, is probably the word I'd probably say in today's football. Bellamy was that last type of player that would just say it as it is, but it was right. If you weren't going to pull your weight, don't play for the club. That's effective what it is. He wanted, like you said, he necessarily didn't play for the club. He didn't play for the badge. He played for the person that gave him the chance to prove that he is there to do a job. And like you say, with the managers, he was perfect for that. Mark Hughes, he was a big fan of Mark Hughes. And obviously Mark Hughes gave him the chances and whatnot. but yeah, just the whole persona around him. I always enjoyed him. I always enjoyed he was always up for the fight, no matter if we were losing. He was just, it was. We could have been in a game that we lost Middlesbrough 8-1. Guarantee you, as soon as we went 8-1 down, last minute, he would have still been putting in a shift trying to get us a goal back. That was just his mentality, and like I said, they don't really make players like him anymore. Just a forward thinking, say it as it is player, work his ass off. But yeah, to go back to you, it eventually came to a full stop with a loan to Cardiff. But it shows he was made captain of Cardiff the moment he arrived on loan, and he also got unpromoted that season. So it shows how much one player can really make the difference. And of course, after that loan spell, he never really got back with it with City, and he agreed with City, didn't he, to terminate the last year of his contract to eventually go on and re-sign for Liverpool, which I think you'll happily say, well, not happily say, that was a massive loss in some retrospect. He could have still done a job.
He really could have done a job for us, but I think he knew he wasn't wanted there, obviously, and he's kind of been on record as well that going back to Liverpool, it was Kenny Dalglish who signed him, and Kenny Dalglish was simply his idol growing up, and was it as it was for a lot of kids. And when you've got a manager or a player of Kenny Dalglish of caliber who wants to sign you, then so be it, basically. But yeah, you can't fault him for his time at City. Scored some important goals for us. Gave 110% every game he played, and to your point, Dan, we kind of, we could do with it a little bit of that, right now when the going gets tough, which we've had this season. Of you need those players who are just going to dig in and give that extra 5% in games, and Bellamy was one of those. And it's funny when you listen to Shearer that they didn't get on, and I think to your point, they were hard men. They didn't take any crap, and that's probably why they didn't get on very well personality wise, because they were winners and they were hard men. But Shearer will be the first one to say, no, I loved playing with Bellamy, because he was the exact kind of player that he needed, of getting down that wing and getting that ball into the box for Shearer. So it's fair play that Shearer's be able to see that distinction between someone who's maybe just personality isn't that great, but someone who's actually a pretty decent footballer and is there for the right reasons. So not there for the money. He was there to try and make a difference and to play for Bobby Robson. So be it. Played very well for Mark Hughes, and as I say, he just wasn't going to probably do that under Mancini, unfortunately. But fortunately for Mancini, things worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah. It's would I be wrong in saying Bellamy is one of those last key figures that left the club where you kind of wish he'd stayed with us one more season to at least win something with the club, like Sean Wright-Phillips?
Definitely.
He deserved it at least.
Yeah.
He deserved something in the cabinet for City. But I mean, to go with it, it's hard to think he played for Celtic once upon a time as well. That's going back all the way to 2003, 2004, I believe. But for saying he never won anything with City, he's got some honours. He won the Scottish Cup with Celtic, ideally on par with the Champions League in my view. He won the League Cup with Liverpool, Community Shield, and Community Shield with Cardiff, I should add. A long time ago, and like I said, he won the promotion championship title with Cardiff as well when he was there on loan. So he's still won a fair bit for a player that wasn't really around the mark a little bit. And obviously, when he signed for City, he still had a couple more clubs to go to, and his transfer total when City signed him, his overall transfer total throughout his career was only 47 million.
I'm surprised at that, because he had some pretty big moves, and you look. And that's the difficulty with Bellamy. That I'm just looking at the number of clubs that he went to. Norwich, Coventry, Newcastle, Celtic, Blackburn, Liverpool, West Ham, City, Cardiff, Liverpool, back to Liverpool, and then back to Cardiff. That just kind of shows that he couldn't get on. I would love him to be a player who could have stayed long term at somewhere, but I've been talking about that with Cancelo as well, that I'm nervous about Cancelo. You look at how young he is and how many teams he's already played for. There's obviously something in his character where managers or players just go, fuck this, I'm not keen on this guy, we need to get him out. And that's a shame when you've got a player of Bellamy's capability who's just moving you look at this, he literally is moving clubs every 2 years. It's not good for him. It's not good for his family life. It's no wonder that he probably got annoyed all the time because, we miss with these players sometimes that, well, they have a personal life as well. They're
not just robots. They're not just people on a pitch.
Uprooting sticks and having to buy a home and new schools for your kids, and well, what's my wife going to do? She's just settled in a job, or whatever it might be. And my God, now we're moving 200 miles again. And knowing with someone like Bellamy, well, this is going to be for 2 years, and then we're going to be moving again. It has to have an impact on you in some way, So yeah, just probably an opportunity missed for him a little bit. I think he's another one like Giggs that, was a player who deserved to play at the highest level in a European Championship or a World Cup with Wales and never got that opportunity. It's unbelievable, really, a player of Giggs' calibre and Bellamy's calibre were never able to play at that level. Same with George Best as well, obviously. Yeah. But I feel for these players like that who were so good and that they didn't yet actually show it on that world stage, because someone like Bellamy, if he could have just got Wales there, damn that a Barcelona or a Real Madrid or a Bayern or a Juventus would have come into him. But what would they have seen of him when he's simply playing in the Premier League probably, and that's it. So yeah, I feel bad for him from that respect.
Yeah, because obviously he's retired now. How do you see his future managerial career? Because that's what he wants to go into. He's already started off the youth systems with Cardiff. I've always seen him, because I've always been with the analogy. I can't remember who said it. I think it was Frank Lampard when he first started managing Derby. He was saying average players make the best coaches. I'm sure it was him who said it, or Stevie Gerrard, or one of them two. It would have been Frank, because Gerrard's a Scouser. It wouldn't have made any sense otherwise. And for me, Bellamy looks like he could be, if his tactical mastermind is on par with some of the managers he's played for, that's all he's missing from his game. I think he's a no-nonsense type bloke when it comes to management. To put it into context, I can see him being a Mancini manager. He won't stand for anything. If he gets his tactics right, he'll be an all-out attacking style team manager. And I can see him doing something. Just whether he gets his chance or whether he really wants to fill the boots in for that role is a different matter. But you never know, he might be managing Wales one day.
Could be, or he might be. I can see him going down the path of being a very good number two somewhere for someone. That I think you're right, Dan. He carries so much baggage with him already, and then there was this whole thing of him bullying with Cardiff. He's got a real big black mark against his name already now for him to get that opportunity. I'd love for him to do like Joey Barton comes with a whole lot of baggage. He's been at Fleetwood now for 2-3 seasons,
2.5 seasons now, yeah.
Yeah,
and he's doing a good job. It has to be said, Barton. He's obviously had his ups and downs by smacking the one at opposite, I think, Bristol City's manager or something like that.
Yeah.
No, but he's doing a job. He's turning Fleetwood round. Fleetwood seems to be coming into the thick of things now. So
I can see Bellamy. Joey Barton is mates with the chairman of Fleetwood, and I think that's how this worked out. Bellamy hopefully is mates with a few chairmen around the country who are willing to take that that chance on someone and do it, because he's definitely got a good pedigree. And you look at some of the managers that he's played under, throughout his career, he's got to have learned, some tips and tricks from there. And, at the end of the day, we all love Vincent Kompany, and we all know he's got his head screwed on. Vincent Kompany would not be having Craig Bellamy over in Belgium, helping coaching Anderlecht if he didn't trust him at all.
No.
It's interesting when you see Vinny and who he has plucked from City, or who he is aware of, that obviously had a lot of time for. Who'd have thought that Vincent Kompany would have gone and signed Nasri? Good player for City, but obviously Vincent Kompany saw something with Nasri, and he's a hell of a player. Yeah. And it's same with Bellamy from a coaching capacity. He's obviously seen something in those 2 years he was at City and gone, God, I want to make sure when I start my career in coaching that Craig Bellamy's along with me. And that's got to be a big thing for Craig to see something like that, because we all know Vinny's going to be back at City probably within the next 5 years as manager, probably.
Oh, do you see that there?
I think it will be Pep. I think we'll have one more manager, and then I think it will be Vinny.
Ooh. I've always thought Vinny might come in, depending how long Pep would be, because obviously Pep's going. City are about to sign Pep's old advisor in the footballing world, isn't he? As our number 2. I can't remember his name. It's quite a big name, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I've always thought, because this chap's old. This chap is very old in terms of who he's come. He's got a lot of pedigree about him. The clubs he's helped manage, the advisor. He was Pep Guardiola's advisor. Pep Guardiola ranked as one of the greatest managers ever, and he was his advisor. This guy's got some knack to his name. So maybe he's just sort of helping the club along now with Pep, and who knows, that role might open up if Pep's still with us for Vinny to come in eventually, and maybe he's there to train Vinny up even if Anderlecht doesn't work out for him. But at the same time, Vinny's as much it's been a start at Anderlecht, I can see him starting to build a bit of a youth dynasty at Anderlecht. There's a lot of young lads coming through their club now, and I think that's, to go back with you. I mean, I completely forgot Nasri's at Anderlecht. I think he's buying that old City core that he knows were the best players in sort of their positions and their formalities, and I think he's brought the older guard in to train this young setup. And like going back to Bellamy, maybe Bellamy can come back to City one day and train some of our wingers up. You never know. I wouldn't mind a winger like Bellamy back at the club for a long term.
Not be, and you heard it here first. Do not be surprised if you see Balotelli show up at Anderlecht.
No.
Honestly, and I believe that could potentially happen. I did not realise that Balotelli was on. I mean, it seems like I'm going to say the word only, but his salary is less than £1 million per season for Brescia, which stunned me.
It's because it was the hometown of his parents. So he had a real deep love for it, and obviously his football career has just declined massively. I mean, when we signed him, Balotelli had the world at his feet, didn't he? He was the next. I know it gets tossed around the player. He had the pedigree to back it up. He was this next good player. Yeah. And it never materialised. So yeah, I completely agree. I didn't think about it that way, but he got on well with Vinny. Vinny managed him well in terms of a player formality.
Something tells me he's been fired or let go from Brescia now, or whatever. That it's not a massive amount of money. That's 20 grand a week. Basically, that's what championship players, earn. That can be afforded by Anderlecht. It would not surprise me at all that. He's done England, he's done Italy, he's been in France, right? He was at Nice, or wherever. It would not surprise me if Vinny calls him and says, "Look, come and help me out in Anderlecht. for 2 years. I'll
Around
get you
players, you know.
I'll get you sorted. You know, from Brussels to Italy. You know, you can go back home. You know, to Italy 2-3 days of the week. You know, you just jump on. You know, it's not that far. So, I really think Balotelli could end up there.
Only thing about going back to Anderlecht, like I say, is Bellamy and Balotelli. Even for Vinny, that is one hell of a task.
Yeah.
Stop the video podcast. Sorry for the interruption, Blues, but I wanted to thank you very much for listening to the show. And also, a little favour to ask. We'd really appreciate it if you share this video podcast with friends, family, and generally any Blues all over the globe that you think might like to listen to us. Your support and positive reviews go a huge way in increasing our visibility on the video podcast all over the globe. We've got fans Canada, Australia, Greece, Sweden, even Wales. Can you believe it? But yeah, if you head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the show, and even leave a review of the show, it really, really helps. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Well, we'll if anyone can sort it out, it's Vinny, as far as I'm concerned.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Could not have put it better myself.
We'll see. And, you know, I've kind of joked on the group chat a few times. It's not like City don't need another striker.
No.
Like, you know, someone who could come on for 15 minutes the last of the game and be a really good, you know, bit of banter in the dressing room or whatever, as well as actually being still a decent player. I've heard stranger things happen. So.
Emil Heskey in England 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.
Can't get any way to do that. Well, that was Bellamy. And one word to describe him up, I think we should finish with Bellamy. What do you reckon the best word to describe him? Sum up his entire career, not just City.
Controversial.
Ooh. Were you on the fence with any others, or was it always going to be controversial?
I think that is the best word to describe him. If you're looking at his entirety of his career, controversial. And it's a funny little quote as well by Bobby Robson that I found too. Bobby Robson described Bellamy as the gobbiest footballer I've ever met.
I should have ended it with the phrase, really, shouldn't I? That's the best way. Oh, dear. Well, Bellamy, if you're listening, we still love you, lad. Come on the podcast with us one day.
Please.
Right. Second and final player for today. If we thought Bellamy was a quick one, this lad, uncontroversial, this lad is... Yeah, he's probably up there at the most recent, the most controversial, and that is the one and only Argentine Carlos Tevez. We signed him, obviously, from Manchester United on the 14th of July 2009, and according to records, it was 47 million thereabouts, but City deny that was the actual price figure, and they since have. There's been values that have been given out here, left, right, and centre. I think 45.4 was the original from Sky Sports and BBC, but even City have denied that, and I don't think they've ever released the actual figure. But yeah, so we'll say 47 million for count of argument from Manchester United. He made only 148 appearances. I keep saying only 148 appearances. Only 148 appearances is quite a lot in the time he did, and he scored a whopping 73 goals in those appearances.
Wow.
I think that doesn't even need an understatement. That is a hell of a record, you know. He was the first. Here's a question for you. He was the first player to swap Manchester clubs since who?
Terry Cook.
1990. That's the one. You didn't even give me a chance to finish it off. But yeah, first player to swap both Manchester clubs was since Terry Cook. He made his debut in a 2-0 away win at Blackburn. Came on as a second half substitute for Nigel de Jong. His first goal was on the 27th of August against Crystal Palace in a 2-0 cup win. League Cup win. Was made club captain in 2010 after Colo Torre left.
Yeah.
And basically, after that, I think we should discuss the first opening year of him signing for City before we get on to all the juicy bits. I mean, there's probably been no bigger introduction to a player and a rubbing salt in the wounds and a kick in the teeth than when we signed him. And we all know of the main banner, "Welcome to Manchester," leading up to Old Trafford, don't we? Was it a Deansgate, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was. I think there was two. There was one on. One at the bottom of Deansgate, and then I think there was one on Mancunian Way as well, pretty close to Old Trafford.
Yeah.
I just remember that so clearly, and it was fantastic how they did that. And I think with Tevez that first year, he really just had that bit between his teeth, and he'd done very well at United. Not denying that. Obviously, again, didn't particularly get on with management there, and he's obviously very money focused, and you can't. Some of these players, Dan, you can't have a go at them. I mean, they come from nothing. Particularly these South American players. Literally living in a shanty town, in a shack, and this is their way out. I think Tevez has got horrific stories about growing up, those scars that he's got. I think he was burnt as a child, and the bullying that he went through with all of that probably as well. And lo and behold, he was actually a fantastic footballer. And we have to realize that sometimes that we don't want our players to be all about the money, but sometimes these players have come from nothing, and they're Adebayor's another example of something like that. They're actually supporting the whole family, not just here, but all the relatives back in South America. So he obviously wanted to come to City because he was going to get a lot more money with us, but I really think he showed, particularly in that first season with us, that he had the bit between his teeth. I'm just looking now, 42 appearances in his first season with us, 29 goals. Yeah. I mean, so that doesn't even count the assists or anything like that, and just his mere presence on the pitch, which I'm always talking about with certain players who, a Ronaldo or a Messi or whatever, who are man-marked anyway, and they take 2 or 3 defenders away. Well, Tevez was that sort of player that you needed 2 or 3 players on him, which let other players play their game. And, that first year, we got to the semi-final of the League Cup, and, when he scored those goals for us, Old Trafford.
Sorry, I thought I had something going in the background then. Sorry, I didn't want to put you off.
No, that's okay. He was in it, and he celebrated scoring against United, who we had, he just left and had a very successful time there. And I think he showed himself to be, a pretty good blue, after that. It really kind of the fans really took him to heart after that, and, realised, God, we've got a player on our hands here. I mean, he was everyone, when we were a few weeks ago when this whole pandemic started and we were building out our our all-time Manchester City 11. I think the vast majority of us are all put in Tevez because we knew how bloody, Aguero and Tevez up front for us. Are you kidding me? Like,
the two terriers.
It simply doesn't get any better than that if you're a Manchester City fan. It can't do. Because they were that good, and Aguero still is.
I mean, we were discussing it. Well, it'd be about 2 weeks ago now. City signing. Have we ever signed any world class players? And I think we all agree Tevez was
one of them.
Number one. He was the first and probably the best world class signing City have ever had. Signed, should I say? And I mean. We all knew the pedigree Tevez had before he signed for City. He did well at West Ham, did fantastic at United, And I think a lot of us at the time, when he signed, I think it was more all of us having a dig at United, wasn't it? Really, it wasn't so much about we've got a world beater here. He's going to do a job for us. He's going to be the best things in sliced bread. I think it was just primarily about United. And I think Tevez knew that, and Tevez had that air about him that he was like, well, United has sort of messed me about to a degree in my final year. You know, he was still getting games. It was down the pecking order in my eyes. And I think he sort of wanted to prove himself, especially against United. So I think he sort of took all that piss taking of United to heart, and that's what built him up to be. I mean, let's not argue. He was a billion times better for City than he was for United. I think everyone will accept that. And I think that was the main focus. I think he just wanted to get his own back, and I think he loved the fact that us City fans were like, we appreciated him more than I think any United fan ever did, by the fact that we were like, we have got this guy now. We are going to give it to United right up the backside, you know.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that when we sign any player. If we sign them from a close rival, especially a biggest rival, any brilliant player you sign from a rival, it's just the air about it, and I love it. But before all the controversy started, is there anything that really came out of your mind about Tevez? Is any memories about him?
Well, I mean, really, at the end of the day, he lifted that FA Cup for us in 2011. And, you know, he was the captain then. This was a lot of people only see our success with Manchester City starting with Vinny, and it's Vinny always lifting the League Cup or the Premiership or whatever it is. You have to remember, it wasn't Vinny to begin with. It was Carlos Tevez who was captain.
And not many people remember that he wasn't even in the semi-final, was he? He was injured for the semi-final. Nobody thought he would make it for the final. So, you know, at the same time, semi-final against United as well.
Exactly. So that's my biggest memory of Tevez. Well, I've got two, really. That lifting that trophy was after all those bloody years in the wilderness, and you could see it meant something to him, you know, to do it. Because I think, to your point, Dan, that I think he had that understanding of what this meant to the fans, and that, oh my God, I'm going to be the captain to lift this trophy after over 30 years and make all these grown men cry. Yes, you are. And if you remember, right after the FA Cup final, like I think it was 3 days later, we played Stoke again.
Yeah.
The Etihad, and I think it was 3-0. And Carlos Tevez scored, in my mind, probably one of the top 3 free kicks that I've ever seen taken. Do you remember that goal?
If I'm honest, I don't. No. I remember the scoreline, but I don't remember the goal.
Go look it up on YouTube after this, and people who are listening, watching, go look it up on YouTube. So he bent that ball from outside, from right foot. He was basically in the center about 25, 30 yards out, and he bent it out right round and came back in. It was just phenomenal to do something like that. And he had that in his locker. And again, you know, like you were saying with Bellamy, City fans like those kind of players who just got something in the locker just a little bit different, and they'll get them on the seat. And Tevez was another one, really, who you got that ball to him, you thought something might happen, and you were up on your seat and you were ready. I absolutely love Tevez, and you know my big bugbear about him all. We got bloody peanuts for him when we sold him. 47 million. I think we got 10 million for him, and I was just looking then when he left for Juventus.
Got 12 million plus add-ons.
I mean, are you kidding me?
Mm.
Still for a player in his 20s, and he played for Juventus. He's played, let me see here, 95 games and scored 50 goals. And we let him go for 12 million, and this is what annoys me, Dan, and this is what I've been talking about over and over and over again, that just because the player was having issues at the club and was arguing with management and, and whatever else and effectively wanted out, that doesn't mean we should have given away for peanuts. We should have done one or two things. We should have either tried to sit down with him and sort all this out to make him stay longer, or we should have said, well, you want him? Look how many goals he scored for City. Look how well he's played for us. Look how many trophies he's won. Right, that'll be 50 million, please. We want our money back on him. Not, we just want shot of him. You can have him for 12. That's my bugbear. But as I say, go watch that YouTube. Go watch YouTube for that goal against Stoke after the FA Cup final, because it's just ridiculous.
To go back to your point about him leaving for peanuts, he because we argue about this a lot on our private chats about the business and the ways that you do, especially with Sane letting the contract. You especially prior to all the behind scenes about his injury and whatnot, you were hands down wanting at least 100 million for him. Which quite rightly too, he had it in his locker to potentially be the world beater. Whether that still happens or not after the injury is a different matter. But yeah, Tevez for me was the start of a decade of losing them types of players. There was Tevez, obviously, Dzeko, another one.
Absolutely.
He still did a one. Kolarov, in fact, I'd go far to say Kolarov. He was in Roma Serie A team of the year when he first signed there. He really stepped up his game, but Dzeko as well. Dzeko, was it you that told me Dzeko's now got a better goal scoring record for Roma than he did at City?
Yep. Scored more for Roma than he has for City.
And it just baffles me. Yeah, and Tevez was that start of that. And I didn't realise he was still in his 20s when we sold him. I thought he was in his 30s at that point.
No, he was born 84, and when he joined Juventus, he was, let me see here,
2013, wasn't it?
So 2004. So yeah, he was 29.
Oh, right. Oof, Bellamy. I honestly thought it was that definitely rubbed salt into the wounds then.
Yeah, and we know nowadays, these players, look at Ronaldo as an example. He's 35, 36 now. I'm not saying every player is like Ronaldo, because he is, the best professional I've ever seen, to be perfectly honest. But 29 is still no age nowadays for even for a striker. That is, 32, 33, you can still be playing at the top level. Look at Aguero, he's just turned 32. That's why I was saying the other day, we were joking about Pizarro, and you said, do you mean, the one who played for us? No, I mean David Pizarro.
Yeah.
41, and he's still playing for Werder Bremen.
Yeah.
Like, these players, and that's what I want City to maybe start understanding a little bit. Well, if you are going to sell these players, they've still got several years in front of them, so stop bloody selling them so cheaply.
And of course, Tevez, as well as his football and his off-field antics, he did have quite a memorable celebration, didn't he? I can't remember the actual name for it. If you do, I always called it "Get Down with the Boogie."
Yes,
arms on top, nice jiggle with the bum, of course, and that's another iconic celebration. So I like that as well. Me and other Dan Adderfax, we were talking about cult heroes, especially Negredo in the first episode, and just what they bring. Obviously, he had beast every time he got the ball, just shouting beast. Tevez gets the ball when he scores. We just love it. The celebration was always going to come, and it was just sort of that. It's not your typical golf celebration, not just ears or Jesus' phones. He just had a laugh. He loved it. He loved sucking up to the moment. Loved his goals, no matter what. And I love that about a player. Just a bit of difference about him. But of course, every good player always has a side of bad. And Tevez had a fair share of that. before we obviously won the FA Cup in 2010, December 2010, he formally submitted a transfer request, didn't he, on the basis of family reasons and falling out with senior officials at the club. Apparently had a deep disagreement with that, and obviously his family was very upset. Apparently his family behind the scenes who really wanted to go back to Argentina. Yeah. Which Tevez, he'd never denied. He'd always had in his plans he would always go back to Boca Juniors without a shadow of a doubt. Even if he was playing for free, he would have always gone back to them. Eventually he did. But of course, we rejected it, didn't we? We didn't want to know anything about it. In fact, I read somewhere, I think it was who was it with? It was I can't remember the name now. It took me tongue. But so one of the assistant coaches said it was absolutely, his words, absolutely ludicrous what Tevez was coming out with. That apparently he just didn't get on with senior chiefs. Apparently he was a well respected and got on with almost every club official. So I think at the same time it came as a shock to us as well. You know, he'd only been there a year and a half, and he'd admitted that he loved life in Manchester. What were your thoughts on the whole situation? That instance.
It very much reminded me of that whole thing with Rooney as well. If you remember when Rooney throw his toys out of the pram, you know, all he basically wanted was to renew his contract and kind of have some commitment from. This is when City had started getting big, and I think he wanted some commitment from United that we're going to compete with City here, and we're going to bring in players, and Alex Ferguson's going to stay, and whatever else. And I see that basically what happened with Tevez. That I don't think it was done in all seriousness. I think he had issues that he didn't know how to raise with the club, and he thought, well, if I do this huge gesture, then people are going to sit down around a table and we're going to get this all figured out. And lo and behold, it was all figured out, and he took that away. And and he said right down a week later, no, I'm totally committed to Manchester City. I love being here and I think it was just some. Not any player can do it, but when you're a player of a Rooney's caliber or a Tevez or a Messi, when they say something, the whole club panics, and you want to make sure you're on it. I honestly believe, Dan, that's all Tevez was doing. Did he go about it the right way? Maybe not, but it cleared the air with everyone at the club, and we got our player back. And that was in the December. 5 months later, he lifted the FA Cup for us. So,
I mean, to go back to Messi, I mean, I think we were linked with Messi about 228 times, 229 times between December 2009 and 2010.
Yes.
I completely agree. He deserved it, though. It's like what you said at the beginning. He's one of them players that he backed it up. Yes, it was about money, but where he's come from. Aguero the same, Messi exactly the same, Ronaldo the same. I mean, I shared with you, I think it was yesterday afternoon or something like that. Ronaldo's the first ever footballing billionaire, and people look at him thinking, "Oh, he's loaded." And he look at his flash cars, his flash house. Nobody remembers that 25 years ago, he was about 9, 8, 9. He was begging people for money. A lot of people look past that. And I think Tevez is another one. Like you said, he had bullying to the highest level. And he was going to get, well, we were talking before that discrimination prior to this podcast. The amount of abuse he was going to get for just that scar alone, not from where he's come from or who he is. And the profile of him to build himself up to play in the Premier League, not just for Manchester United, not for Man City, but for a whole host of things, West Ham especially. And he made his name. He didn't build a reputation. He made it. There wasn't a reputation to be had. He put his foot down and said, I will make a new reputation. And he did. And he is got to be one of not just because of the cross divide between City and United. He is a profile player that everybody would know, no matter where you are in the world or where you've come from. Everyone will have heard of Carlos Tevez. And he did that himself, and he built that reputation. And fair play to him, completely fair play to him. If he wanted more money, he earned it, in my respect. And to see, I never saw it as a serious matter either. It was. I think it's like what you said. Players do it. World class players do it just to get a new contract. And in my eyes, I always put it this way: if he really wanted to do that to get a new contract, he must have really loved being at City.
And I honestly believe that he did. You had a couple of fellow Argentinians there, or Zabaleta was obviously already there. Aguero joined. The following year, after him, and he good buddies with them as well. The Tevez is a player we were very, you've kind of pointed out before that he was a world-class signing. That player could have played in literally any team in the world, and he United and City and Juventus, some of the, biggest clubs in the world. Could he have played for Barca or Real? Totally. That's how good he was, and I think that's why I think the vast majority of City fans, certainly if you kind of look at building a team of your best players of all time, I think the vast majority of City fans would put Tevez in there because he was that good.
Yeah. Can't disagree with it. Anybody who disagrees with it doesn't know football. Quite honestly, that is the way you've got to put it. For a striker, a proper in the box, find the back of the net striker, world class without a doubt. Anyone who says different is delusional.
Yeah, everything.
And to
both the free kicks, penalties, assists, right mentality. Had it. He had that bit between his teeth every game. He just had everything in his locker. Yeah. So I don't deny him anything. All I wish is he'd stayed at City longer. That's it.
Or went for a lot more money.
Yes.
But to break it up before we go on to Bayern Munich situation, he actually almost came close to a record at City. He became the second fastest City player of all time to reach 50 goals. Going back to a bit of history, who was the first? Do you remember? Or do you know?
First City player to reach 50 goals.
50 goals.
50 league goals or just 50 goals for the club?
I should have written that down. Well, just say a name and I'll tell you if I've got the one or not.
The fastest player to 50 goals for the club. Jeez.
He did it in 63 games.
Bloody hell. So Eric Brook?
No.
Eric Brook.
Derek.
Oh,
Derek's
Derek.
His first name.
Oh, I don't know. Derek. Who?
Kevin. Kevan. Kevin. That's what I've got down. That's what it came up with. No idea.
Nah, I would have thought it would be like an Eric Brook, who's the second highest goal scorer now, or a Franny Lee, or someone that I would never have got that.
No. I've double checked it on numerous sources. Derek Kevin, Kevan. I've never heard of him myself. I don't even know when he played. For all I know, it could have been early 19th century, which I'm surprised you still didn't get to. But
not that.
No, that it's the name that kept popping up every time I said the fastest goals for City to 50 goals. But
wow.
Yeah, but Tevez succeeded that 50 goal feat in 73 games, which at the same time is a hell of a record as well. But of course, we have to come to probably. You'd have to say. I'd use the word highlight because it's the only thing that everybody really remembers at Tevez's time at City. And that's, of course, in 2011, 27th of September in 2011, where there's been conflicting reports about what really happened. But I think it was clear for all to see, quite clearly refused to warm up for Mancini. We were 2-0 down to Bayern Munich in the Champions League at the time. turned to Tevez, and Tevez basically said no. Do you remember it clearly? I mean, I can't remember if I watched it. I remember thinking about it as if I was watching the game. I can't remember if it was on TV or not, but I remember everything that happened. He just like, no, not happening. What do you remember?
Yeah, I remember all of it. I was watching, and obviously, watching it on TV, they were focusing on the game as more than what was happening on the bench. But it was almost afterwards when you found out more about what was going on, and they kind of showed the second camera, and you just saw a lot of stunned faces, on the bench. And, I distinctly remember Zabaleta really trying to figure this situation out, with Zabaleta being really good at English. I don't think Mancini and Tevez communicated very well, Spanish and Italian. And I think Zabaleta was somewhat the go-between for them and was trying to figure out what was going on. And all I've read ever since for the last 9 years is that Mancini says there was a miscommunication of what he wanted Tevez to do, and Tevez says the same thing, that there was a miscommunication from Mancini as to what he was wanting him to do. And it was just quite obvious, right, that him and Tevez and Mancini just didn't get on as people. This goes back to the whole Bellamy thing as well, that you've got a very, very, very fiery Italian, we know that, and we've got a very, very fiery Argentinian. And they were 90% of the time, they were able to just kind of get over that and play the game and whatever else. But there was always going to be that 10% where things could just flare up. And unfortunately, it happened to be, during a game, and this thing flared up. And that was probably the beginning of the end for Tevez's career at Manchester City. He came, he had his lengthy break and he came back and he was a wonderful player. But you just feel, don't you, the writing was kind of somewhat on the wall after that incident. And, you can ask Zabaleta about it now. And, he was the one who was kind of caught right in the middle of this. And he kind of shrugged his shoulders as well. I'm like, God, it just spiraled out of control, within a matter of seconds. And we end up losing one of the best players that Manchester City's ever had for months and months. And all I can say in Tevez's defence is, when he was eventually allowed to come back to Manchester City and play again, he was still as good, and he's still putting that 110% effort. So, would we be a different team, with him there? Of course we would, but it is what it is. And he always gave 110% for us. One of the best players that City have ever had on the books, in my opinion. He's an absolute great. I keep getting in trouble every time I post on, the page, when I use the word legend or great. And City fans are absolutely deluded. I'm sorry, but if they don't think that guy's a legend or a great for Manchester City, then there's something wrong. He lifted our first bloody trophy for over 30 years, for God's sake. Like, he's a legend.
See, I'd go as far to say he was a City great, not legend, because he wasn't, albeit he achieved nothing any other player's done in recent times, apart from Aguero. Aguero's obviously obliterated that.
Yeah.
He was a great. I just the problems that were involved in his career at City, and it wasn't really a lengthy career at City, really, was it? It was 3-4 years maximum. It wasn't, City through that time. We had the likes of, like you say, Zabaleta, Vinny, David Silva starting up. These players, and Aguero obviously, these players would go on to have decades at the club. Tevez was one of them that, like you said, if we didn't let him go, he had another, would we say 3-4 years top flight football left in him?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If he had kept his I don't know, because obviously we obviously been told that there's miscommunication during that, and I think we've all got our own personal opinions. Everybody says a different story by those select few, and I think it always does come down to what you said, where it was just a miscommunication, didn't really get on with each other, and I think that sort of hindered it. I think Tevez should have been I'd want to say bigger man. No pun intended, because he was a really short ass. But he should have been the bigger man. Mancini was the manager. You know, as much as we love Tevez, Mancini was the gaffer. You do what the gaffer says. End of. If you don't respect it, you get out. And Tevez, Tevez had it in his locker to become a legend, without a doubt. But of course, that happened, and he went on sabbatical, some people want to call it, a full paid leave, and eventually came back and he apologised, didn't he? And of course, I always remember this game because it was the turning point for me. We'd started a comeback against United, but the 2-1 home win against Chelsea, where Tevez made his comeback, and the first thing he did was assist Sami and Nasri for the winning goal in that game. That started that big push. And I mean, the Norwich game, Aguero and Tevez in that Norwich game were phenomenal. That was what we could have had if Tevez stayed. You know, that like you said at the beginning, that is the best partnership City have had in God knows how many decades. And they could have easily created a dynasty. They definitely started one. Without a doubt, that is something no City fan can. They started a dynasty. They didn't see it through in my eyes, and they should have. But yeah, then eventually, he moved on to Juve, and that was the end of Tevez and Man City.
No, I think you're right to pick up on that Norwich game. That if any City fans don't remember it or never saw it, go on YouTube and watch that Norwich game. We were away at Carrow Road. We beat them 5-0, and it was one of the best Manchester City performances that I have ever seen. We just absolutely took Norwich apart. And yeah, it's Norwich, but yes, they were a Premiership club, and they didn't touch us. And the goals that we scored as well. The Tevez's first goal, where you actually thought on first look it had actually gone into the crowd, and what it had done is sneak in and that near post. And I remember the keeper even looking like, God, how's that gone in? I thought that was going in the crowd, and it's gone in. And that. If you remember, that's when Tevez was like, me. That was his celebration. And the goals we scored that game, that little flick that Tevez did for Aguero's goal from outside the box as well. If you remember that, into the top left-hand corner, they just had something. And probably the best Manchester City team goal that I've ever seen them score in that game as well. I think it was Adam Johnson finished off the move, but it started from our half. Yeah, about 5 or 6 passes, including Tevez in there as well. Just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you are right, Dan, that they were. My God, what could have happened if we'd have kept Tevez along? And so be it. He left. We can't complain with all the successes we had anyway. But you just have this little niggling. Well, what if? He could have stayed because he was that good, and he continues to be that good. Yeah, he's 36 now, but he's still playing for Boca, and he's still scoring the odd goal, and fair play to him. I'd like to think that City fans would welcome Tevez back, to come watch a game, or whatever, with open arms. So
yeah. Well, that couldn't have ended any better. But to go back to Bellamy, by the word legend, what word would you use to describe Carlos Tevez's career? Bar legend and great. Kick them two out of the park. Don't say perfect.
I'm going to go phenomenal. He is one of my favourite ever players because he's he's got everything in his locker that I like in a player. That he's got the tricks, he's got the goals, he can do everything, but he's got the right mentality as well. You know, a lot of people don't like Suarez at Barca or when he was at Liverpool, but I like those players who just, you know,
just do the job that they're there for.
They're going to fight for every ball, you know, and they want to win. And we could do with a little bit more of that at City, to be perfectly honest. That's probably what stopped us winning a Champions League up until now, just because we just don't quite have that player who will go, F this, you know, we've got to do this. And Tevez, you know, Suarez, those type of players, they're just like that, game in, game out, and I love them for it.
Certain pedigree that you don't get much more. I think Aguero and Suarez currently are the last two of that breed that are currently playing. I think the whole batch of youngsters that are coming up through the footballing world now should be looking for those types of players. Quite rightly, like you said, Tevez, Aguero, Suarez, they're the main ones. Lewandowski, I'd probably say as well. But yeah,
I mean, you go over to the dark side, and you know, and you say that have United ever replaced Keane? And that's what they've always said about that team. That so I mean, I don't know how long was it, 20 years ago, something like that, he left United now, and you still hear United fans saying they still don't have that Keane replacement. They still don't.
Carrick was the closest they've come, and to put it in perspective, as much as we don't like talking about him, Keane was good. He was a class player, and I think Carrick for me was an underrated great player. But for saying that, he still never came to the heights of it.
No.
But yeah, to go back to that point, yeah, they never really replaced him, did they?
No. And that's the same with Tevez. That when you've got that kind of mentality, you know, Liverpool are doing, you know, great guns. I get that. Have they ever replaced Suarez? He basically single-handedly almost won them that title, you know, back in 13-14. You know, everyone agrees with that. You know, it's towards the end of Gerrard's career that it wasn't Gerrard who got them in that position. It was Suarez. And
Gerrard certainly helped get him into a position without a doubt. But...
yeah, and it's this certain players, isn't there, who just have that mentality about them. You know, that Keane, decent midfielder, but winning mentality, just out of the park. And the same with Tevez. What he had was actually a phenomenal player, and had that absolute winning mentality on top of it, and wanted the money. And who can blame him? You know, with his upbringing. So I've got nothing but good things to say about Tevez. Do I wish he'd not had that big disagreement with Mancini? Of course, but played over 100 games for us, scored buckets of goals, won the Community Shield, won the Premiership, won the FA Cup, stuck one in the boot of, you know, those fans on the outskirts of Manchester. I'll take it. I'll take it.
But couldn't have put it better anyway. I can't get my words out. It was that phenomenal. We'll use your words. But that was the best way to end it, I think. Blues, phenomenal. Used by the word used by City Dave. And yeah, it's just that, for me, that sums him up. You know, couldn't have ended that any better. So, but yeah, thank you for joining me on episode number 3, Dave.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna leave a question for you to pick one of the next 3 players for the next episode, which is episode number 4. And it needs to be either a goalkeeper or a defensive player of the last 10 years. Who are you picking?
A goalkeeper. Well, you know what I'm going to do then? I'm going to pick your personal favourite player of all time then, Dan. Mr. Shay Given.
For those, because obviously I've never shared this with you, Blues, I very rarely, if anything, never get to meet the players, whether it's walking out the tunnel out like that. And I was fortunate enough to meet Shay Given when we lost, because I went to Hull City away where we lost 2-1. And unfortunately got to meet Shay Given that game, and I asked for a autograph. He said no, so I said, can I have a quick photo? And he told me to fuck off. I was a 13/14-year-old young City, fully in my heart fan, and he shot it to dreams. So, Dave, as much as I love you as a friend, you're also a bastard. But yeah, it looks like we've got Shay Given lined up for the next one alongside two others. I think we might just void episode number 4, but you know, City Dave chose it.
I'll bring my signed Shay Given gloves on the show as well, Dan. Don't worry.
No, but honestly, mate, thank you for taking part in episode number 3 and sharing your past on it. And hopefully, Blues, you'll like what you've seen. Remember to give us a like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and also any other audio listeners such as Audio Boom or Apple. Give us a like, give us a review. It means absolutely everything to us to get us up the ranking, and it also helps us get a better understanding of what better content we can give for you, and hopefully keep improving the podcast and making them for everybody. So yeah, thanks again, City Dave, and take care and enjoy the rest of your day, and take care, Blues.
All right, City till we die.
Indeed. Take care, mate. See you later.
Hello, my name is Max. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Come on, City!